Flight boss, bitch, you know, for sure. You're now listening to the Mind of an Terry's Moon. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucker responsibilities. And right now I'm going to explain to you the origins of our solar system. Now, our solar system is birthed from a specific space, a location. And within that space, every space has a 360. So there's always something that has to spiral out of that 360 first before you get all the other spiralings out of it and all the relationships and the family and stars and things out of that. So I'm not going to get into the big story because I will have to add a lot more other planets and things of that and stars and things of that nature. So I'm just going to give you the basic aspect of the origins of how our solar system started rotating in the way that it's rotating in the first place, because there's a misconception about us traveling the sun and not knowing what the sun is traveling and us being lost, and it's a whole bunch of and our solar system being separate. So it's a whole bunch of misconceptions, and this is what I mean by this, because there's a thin line between being into astrology and knowing astrology. For an example, right? Yeah, it's one thing to know all about the sun ruling Leo, even to the point that you have enough information that you feel like teaching it, right? But did you ever sit back and think, how the fuck did we even calculate and come to the conclusion that the sun rules Leo in the first place? You see what I'm saying? So when you really start to understand star lineage and things of that nature, you start to understand what was first, what may have been. Now, I'm not saying how old these things are, but what have came in our rotation at certain particular times, because this rotation is already spiraling in an esoteric spiral already, based upon the spirits taking on lighter forms of bodies before they took on heavier and created heavier forms of bodies to be able to experience this rotation and this reality, relativeness between influences and lights. So when you understand this goes down into the space, and you know all of us have a space, and we're born within a space. So there's always going to be a 360, no matter what space you're in relative to another space. You're always going to perceive it from a 360. So once things leave your spectrum of your 360, you're only able to perceive things that come close to your ecliptic belt, which is your body and your sight, your foresight. So to understand this, you have to understand spaces. Now, when we understand this from an astrological point of view, right, it's not from the first house and up. It's actually from the 12th house and down. And here how you, and I'm gonna explain to you how you can understand that from a common sense level. Because you'll probably be like, why we don't start from the first house and up? Because the first house is the most personal. But we know that astrology wise, but I'm gonna explain to you spiritual wise of why it's like that, to the point that I'm explaining to you how astrology is even created, basically. But check this out. So we're going to start from the less dense houses, the less physical. And this is going to let you correlate. So I'm not going to get into the actual stories like I said, because that's another video. I'm going to have to get into other relationships with things outside of us. But we're just going to talk about the solar system now. The first spaces that was rotating in a certain area, right, will be, because what was first shall be last, what was last shall be first, was like the 12th house. So it's very faint. It's like an imagination. It's where spirits was taking in the lighter type bodies to either create heavier bodies to come in this realm of reality. So planets and stars, that's forms of bodies, right, was inhabited by spirits that had this level of experience. So, you know, they know how to control more of the dream aspect, the shapeless, formless, before things take shape and form. So this is where you get aspects of planets like Neptune, you know, very fake planets like Pluto, because Pluto is transformed. But we're going to get into that. Pluto is something else now. But for the most part, let's talk about Neptune. So it's very faint, right? But now, there's, like I said, I don't want to get into the stories, but let's just say a piece of it right now. There's a bunch of relationships that happen where it correlated and it brought into this rotation Uranus also. So something happened. Now I'm not gonna get that's another video, but based upon this relationships, this created the space of the 12th house and aspects of imaginations of the 11th house. Now within this 11th house, you have a level of life here within this space. Now think of the 12th house like this. So when the space look like a cone as I go down, because I'm gonna be doing it like this, look at it as it's really just around it, and it's a spiral. But the spiral within itself got each level of life that spread out like a, you know what I'm saying, like an upside down triangle almost. Now, so this is how you correlate when you looking down and the sun looked like it's doing this to you. You're really looking up, but you're really looking down. But this is another thing. From a spirit, from a physical, is vice versa. So when you live in the physical, you're living backwards. When you live in the spiritual, you're living forward. Then they get confused a lot of times. And your soul is just experiencing, which is your individual spirit. But let's get back to this. So something happened between this space and all the stars that was mixing. The most prominent stars was the most experienced spirits within those vessels, those star vessels, would say like Neptune, Uranus. Now something happened, but with all these relationships, what they was influencing, came the birth of Saturn. So Saturn is now what like I said, I'm not gonna get into the story, but Saturn overthrown and took over the space of the 11th house, because it had the imagination of the 12th house. So it was one of the first beings here to manifest itself, to start controlling the relationship of the dream and the physical as it was formulating itself. Now with Saturn, it took what was going to be the 11th house and made it the 11th house, right? And then made its throne as the 10th house. So the 10th house is the highest part of a chart. So it's the mid-heaven. So it's the heavens. But hell to y'all is the heavens. But that's another video. But it's the heavens, right? So with this being the heavens, Saturn controlled this whole longitude of space. And that's the seat. So in your realm of reality, as you at, it'll be perceived as the 11th and the 10th house. And having authority, but having a dream of the 12th house. So the 12th house is kind of like the dream now, but actually how Saturn came and got birthed through here in this space, in this 360. So Saturn rules this 360 based upon what Saturn had done. Now I'm not gonna get into them stories. Now what got created now in that aspect, right? Earth was created also. So there's a relationship between Saturn and Earth. You see what I'm saying? So within that whole dream aspect of Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Earth was mixed and involved with that also. Now, what's going to happen with this right here is it's a relationship. But the more planets and stars is being created, as far as you can look at them as children, the more separation you're going to witness between Saturn and Earth. But Earth sits its throne on the 6th house space, 10th, and then the 10th and 11th house space still Saturn. But we're going to get into that. Now, what was created out of that Earth and Saturn kind of prospect, right? Then you get Jupiter. So now you got Jupiter. Now Jupiter is bouncing from, now since Saturn here, Jupiter is under that, bouncing here and here. So Saturn here and here, Jupiter is here and here and here. So it's going to appear from your perspective as bouncing from the 9th and the 12th house. But what happens is it came out of Saturn's imagination, Saturn's and Earth's imagination, got birth here, right, and was able to take the physical form of and control the space of what you will perceive as the 9th house, but it's bouncing from the 9th and the 12th house. So it's correlated with dreams and bringing dreams into reality. So this is where you get things like religion, philosophy, and things of that nature, making the dreams be seen. And this is where you know what I'm saying, taking the inner realm and expressing it in the outer realm and things of that nature. Now, what came after that was Mars. So you got Jupiter here, now you got Mars here. Now what Mars is doing is bouncing from the 8th house, and every time it's doing a perspective, it would appear from your angling that it's doing some type of in conjunction, because its path, when it's going straight based upon the level of life on top of it, look at it like this. Jupiter will be like this, doing what it's doing. So if Mars under it, more straight, doing what it's doing, every level of life seems to be like an in conjunction. This is why in conjunctions in astrology represents misunderstandings. See what I'm saying? This level of life is not going to understand this level of life. Same way the level of life in the brain you created as a spirit is not going to understand the level of life of an animal or a bug. So the best way y'all know how to resonate with each other and share experiences, that's how y'all know. And you don't understand the level of life of planets. So the best way you understand time and location and space, you understand astrology and planets and stars. You see what I'm saying? So now you got Mars down here bouncing between what appear to you as the 8th and the 1st house. But really it's just, these are spaces that's connected from its own level of life. So we're starting to get more dense too, more physical. So this is why Mars represents more of the desires, get more of the lower nature and things of that nature, and get more of the desires and passions. But it's bouncing from the 8th and the 9th. Now it's taken from the dream and what became religion or philosophy, right? And making it be sacred and occult like, and making it more personal. You know what I'm saying? And making it, so that's the 8th and the 1st house. And making it more, and making these things part of its personal affairs and personal issues. And making it hidden. Now, for the most part, after that, then you get Venus. Now, Venus, if Mars like this, Venus is under, it's in conjunction spaces. Now, so by Venus being down here, it's going to be bouncing from the 7th and the 2nd house from your perspective. We're going to get down to your perspective, but it's going to be bouncing from that. So now Venus is representing after Mars. So that's how you know what came after and what came before. And now in this rotation is correlating from the 7th and 2nd house. So you have a love and appreciation of value for your relationships and the things that you value and what you have to offer to the world. Now we're going to get to Mercury. Now Mercury is the youngest. So you know when everything was going this, you know what I'm saying, based upon his relative perspective, but even in a shorter distance, now you got Mercury. So Mercury is like doing this. You got Saturn way up here doing this. You see what I'm saying? Now you got Mercury doing this in its relative space. So it's going to correlate to the 6th house and 3rd house based upon your perspective. And I'm gonna explain to you why it seemed like a 360 from your perspective, because you're underneath that triangle. So if this is your point of reference looking out, right, then it just looked like a cone, like a spiral. It'd be like a, I don't know. See, like the cup, say that the cup is the point, and it'd be like a cone, a spiral. So yeah, it's 360 from your perspective down here, but really it's just levels of life. And when you reach each level of life, you're able to see that perspective a lot better, and able to see the lower one a lot better. You see what I'm saying? Now Mercury is going from the 6th and the 3rd house. Now Mercury is more close to Earth. What? It's between Earth and the Sun, because the Sun is next and Earth sits on the throne of the 6th house, because that's the spread it out and the separation. And then that was the last child, which is Mercury, being birthed. So Mercury rules the 6th house, which come from the birth of the 6th house space, which already there is Earth, and it's bouncing from the 3rd house. So this makes Mercury young. So this makes Mercury play out in people as being curious and things of that nature. So now we get the ones that don't move, and this is where we're actually at now. And these are fairly new, and they're closest to your perspective, since if you on the 6th house, right? say you live on the 6th house, right? The closest to your perspectives is the 5th and the 4th house. So then we got the sun, and then last but not least, the most youngest is the moon, right? That's affecting this rotation. Now, then you got the sun. So the sun don't move at all. See how Mercury moved a little bit? Sun is not moving based upon your perspective. You see what I'm saying? Because you're on the below platform. So what's closest to you is the sun, which is the 5th house, which is what? The stage, the platform. You know what I'm saying? How you express yourself. You know what I'm saying? And your creative mechanism, your imagination. Then we get to the 4th house. And that's the moon. That's the inner. How you're receiving everything that you're seeing outside of you from the sun. And the moon, that's last. So it's going within you, which is home, inside of you, your heart. So this lets you know that the sun control like your brain muscles, that, and then your heart, and then the moon control like your heart muscles. So this is the most important to you because now you're here up under them. So they're the closest to you, expanding, and you're catching. So you caught them first to be born here. So what do that mean? That means the first levels of life you're here to experience, and the first levels of life you're here to master is the sun and the moon. So the sun is what your actions and what you can consciously be aware of and how you express yourself. And look, when the moon is exalted in the 1st house, the same way, I mean, the sun is exalted in the 1st house, the same way the moon is exalted in the 2nd house. So now you get to filter these things through higher attributes. You know what I'm saying? You get to filter these things through your Mars nature, have an intent to make this part of your personality. You get to filter these things through your love, your Venus, through the things that you value. You get your heart, you get to do that through the 2nd house because it's exalted there. The things that you value and what you have to offer to the world and how you connect to the people, places, and things that you value because the moon connect. So don't overexhaust yourself. And the sun is exalted in the 1st house because don't overexhaust yourself into your personal issues and personal affairs, but your personality is there to be expressed, is there to show your creativity. So your creativity has something to be shown through the Mars aspect, the intent, willpower, and passion. So in that space, it likes to be in that space. So for the most part, this lets you know that what was very last because you was here last, because all those other planets was here before you, and since the ones that's closest to you is the sun and the moon, then that lets you know you came after them, so you last. But then that lets you know that you just a life below them, and then it's higher lives than them. You see what I'm saying? And then you're on Earth, so that lets you know Earth is the one that you're going to get birth through. So Earth, so that kind of give you a concept that, okay, Saturn and Earth must have been fucking, and a lot of these stars that we see here now was born from them in our solar system. This is why they're connected. And since they're putting off seeds and we're born the same way those stars was born, then we're little cells within the Earth star. So that's letting you know that we're getting ready to be like the sun, like Mercury, like Jupiter. We're getting ready to be birthed out into that life because that's the same way that they was birthed out. See what I'm saying? So that lets you know what was here first. So no two stars the same. The way y'all looking at Saturn and Jupiter and stuff like that was confusing y'all to make y'all think that the sun is something more important, or this is more important, or things is more important. All these is correlations, and if you dive deep, you can start to understand, like, oh shit, damn, this is some shit. This is why Saturn and Earth are titans, because they represent the earth quality. So, and when I say earth is just realms. It's an element like fire, water. I've been saying this for years. Water, fire, earth, air. When you get in the sun realm of reality, that's more fire. You're dealing more with spirit and light kind of bodies and these kind of bodies and things of that nature, to the point that you don't need no physical form in this kind of magnitude for that level of life. That is another type of shape and form, but still a body that your spirit can take. That's another type of shape and form. Now, for you to have these kind of shapes and forms is because you're on the earth element. Now, earth, I don't know why they call Gaia earth, because Saturn is earth too. Earth is just the element, the character, that the space and the rainbow waters that they like they like to stay in. And the earth element is like fire, water, air. Then you got earth. Practicality, pattern, scheduling, routine. We won't have no sense of pattern and routine if we was following the sun like y'all saying we are. You see what I'm saying? So if you really want to get technical, it's really the sun really following Earth and Saturn. It ain't the sun rotating Earth. It might be Earth rotating the sun. See what I'm saying? I mean, hold on, my bad. Yeah, you're right. That's why the sun is rotating Earth. Hold on, scientists got it right. What the fuck I'm talking about? Now, have you ever wondered that? That's why the sun is rotating Earth, because Earth is heavier. Earth is more experienced. Earth is older. And we're all following Saturn. See what I'm saying? So it's not a situation that don't make sense. We're following the sun, but the sun is rotating Earth. Do that make any goddamn sense? But scientists will tell you that shit. That don't make no goddamn sense, right? But I just sat here and ran down to you how it's correlated. Flight boss, bitch, goddamn air.